You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this very podcast. There is a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of December 5th, 2024. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where our watchword every time a Republican claims, but I didn't vote for this, is going to go right on being,
yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Until the end of time. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. And yeah, we're repeating that. Yeah, and we're going to keep repeating
our
it.
Regular opening for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Driftglass, we get letters.
We do. We really do.
Letters. We get letters. We get back and back of letters.
And among the letters we get are unsolicited offers from publicity agents to put guests on our show.
Yeah.
Which, on the face of it, proves that they've never listened to this show.
Exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, if your marketing person is trying to get you booked on this show, you probably need to get another marketing manager.
Yeah, I know. I believe we're probably on a list somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Of,
sure.
D-list podcasts.
D-list political podcasts that might be willing to put you on for free. Yeah.
Yeah. But this particular solicitation came over the transom today.
Yeah.
And honestly, I read it and I said, you know what? This is just too perfect and funny not to share.
It is podcastable. It does fall under that category. Yeah.
So we're not going to take your guess, but we will take your content. So thank you very much for sending it along. Here we go. Quote, "Hi, Driftglass and Blue Gal. How are you?" "Well, we're just fine. Thank you for asking. Would you be interested in the interview with former Indiana Congressperson Jill Long Thompson?" Wait for it. "Author of the new book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America." Yeah. Wait for that to sink in.
And it's funny because she has a question at the end of that sentence, meaning, would you be interested? But
would you like to talk to her about?
The question mark should go with, bipartisanship works for America?
Yeah. But that's not the book she wrote.
That's not the title.
To receive a review copy of the book, we really should get a review copy of the book, honey.
Oh, God.
To give away as a premium to some lucky podcast listener. Do you need kindling for your fire, for your bonfire for the holidays? Or to schedule an interview with former Indiana Congressperson Jill Long Thompson, who I'm sure is a lovely person. Mm-hmm. Unquote. Now, there's some contact information. We're not going to give you the contact information of the agent or anything like that. That's plain dirty. But it ends as follows. Quote, "Why bipartisanship works for America with former Indiana Congressperson Jill Long Thompson. Bipartisanship has been essential to America's success throughout its history, especially the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
Today, however, there seems to be waning interest by politicians in both parties to work together to address pressing issues and find solutions. In Across the Aisle, author and former Indiana Congressperson Jill Long Thompson invites highly respected Republicans and Democrats to argue persuasively that time and again, bipartisanship on the local, state, and national levels have proven integral to moving America forward," unquote. And I have a long section after here for a free-floating discussion for 90 minutes or so, just between you and me, about the merits of this.
And you looked her up. Jill Long Thompson is in her 70s.
Yeah, she's like 72. I'm sure she's a lovely person. She really wants to, she read a lot of David Broder in her youth. May I share something with you that I peeped on social media that pairs well with this, that is not in our preparation? Sure. A gentleman named Barack Obama, ever heard of him?
I've heard of him.
Is asking people on the socials, on a different social media site that we no longer speak of, to tune in now for our 3rd annual Obama Foundation Democracy Forum as we talk about pluralism, how we can disagree deeply while still finding a way to live together. Nice sentiment.
Yeah.
The responses are, right off the bat, the Obama Foundation is a criminal enterprise.
That's so bipartisan, Driftglass.
says the man who divided the country more than any president in our history.
Oh, he so divided the country.
No, thank you.
Driftglass.
Most divisive president in history, and you tried to turn everyone gay. A time to investigate the Obama Foundation. And you're literally the biggest hypocrite on planet Earth. You've done more damage to race relations in America than David Duke ever dreamed about doing, and you did it for political gains. So you know what? I'm sorry, Jill Long Thompson, but until those assholes are gone from this planet, you'll get no bipartisanship interviews from us. Sorry.
I will tie this all together by noting that on her Wikipedia page,
Yes.
it notes that in October of 2009, President Barack Obama nominated Jill Long Thompson to the Farm Credit Administration Board, the independent agency that oversees the farm credit system.
And she's a Democrat, by the way.
And she's a Democrat, but she was nominated for this independent agency that oversees the farm credit system. Her nomination was held up in the Senate, Driftglass.
No.
To the independent farm credit system.
No.
So Obama installed her by recess appointment in March of 2010. She waited 7 months.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why won't Obama lead? Ludra?
Why won't Obama lead?
Why wouldn't he persuade them using persuasion and bipartisanship and his Green Lantern powers to just appoint this nice lady to a bipartisan commission on farm stuff? You know,
and then
sorry.
The Senate finally confirmed her in September of 2010. That is 11 months after she was nominated.
Yeah.
To an independent agency. This is not something that's going to make any headlines.
Was this before or after they defunded Acorn for signing people up to vote? Yeah. I don't.
Yep.
I would love to live in the whatever fucking dream world you live in, lady. I really would. We don't live in that world, and continuing to pretend that we do.
Well, it sounds like her own experience with being nominated, you know, maybe she ought to bring up this with Mitch McConnell and discuss with him the importance of bipartisanship.
Yeah, go on Mitch McConnell's podcast. I'm sure he'd love to have you. You know, all due respect, former Indiana congressperson.
Speaking of letters.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Was there a letter published this week? It's not a letter. It's an article. It's in The Atlantic. Perhaps you've heard of the issue that arose this week on Morning Joe. I was really quite surprised that Keith Olbermann didn't cover it this morning.
Yeah.
Maybe he just didn't want to talk about David Frum, but...
You came to me with this, and I was like, okay, Morning Joe. Remember what? Oh.
Yeah. You were like, oh, I see. I see why you're reading this to me now.
Yes.
And I guess we do have to thank George Conway for sharing it widely on Blue Sky. Because otherwise it's behind a paywall. So thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
All right. So I'm going to read a little bit of this, and we're going to discuss it as we go.
All right.
And if you've already read it, you'll get our take on it. This is David Frum writing in The Atlantic yesterday. This morning, yesterday meaning Thursday, meaning Wednesday, excuse me, Wednesday of this week. Okay. This morning, I had an unsettling experience. I was invited onto MSNBC's Morning Joe to talk from a studio in Washington, D.C. about an article I'd written on Trump's approach to foreign policy. Before getting to the article, I was asked about the nomination of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, specifically about an NBC News report that his heavy-drinking, worried colleagues at Fox News and at the veterans organization he'd headed. And then there's a quote from the Trump transition team, which blah, blah, blah.
But he was asked this question.
Accusing him of political cheap shots. Okay, fine.
But he was asked this question.
He was asked about it. Yes. Tell us what you think of the Pete Hegseth nomination and the charges that he has been drunk on the job, etc. Okay.
Right.
I answered by reminding viewers of some history. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush nominated John Tower, senator from Texas, for Secretary of Defense. Tower was a very considerable person, a real defense intellectual, someone who deeply understood defense, unlike the current nominee. It emerged that Tower had a drinking problem, and when he was drinking too much, he would make himself a nuisance or worse to women around him. And for that reason, his nomination collapsed in 1989.
I remember that.
You don't, yes, we both remember that. You don't want to think that our moral standards have declined so much that you can say, let's take all the drinking, all the sex pesting, subtract any knowledge of defense, subtract any leadership, and there's your next Secretary of Defense for the 21st century.
And leading that paragraph with, you don't want to think.
Yeah,
but
right.
But that's exactly what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
it is that kind of, golly, it would be a real shame if this were really true, if this was happening, but it's happening.
I told the story in very pungent terms. It's cable TV after all, and I introduced the discussion with a joke. Now, the way David Frum tells a joke is pretty awful.
Yeah.
Because it was deadpan. He didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He didn't say, he just said it. But what he said was, if you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. Okay.
If it were me, I would have gone with a knock-knock joke.
Yeah.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Not Pete Hegseth, because he's drunk. That kind of thing. Very basic. So the people who still watch Morning Joe would understand it,
Uh-huh. Okay. Now here's where David Frum crosses the river Styx.
Yeah.
Right? Into the netherworld where he will never be on Morning Joe again. At the next ad break, a producer spoke into my ear. He objected to my comments about Fox and warned me not to repeat them. I said something noncommittal and got another round of warning. After the break, I was asked a follow-up question on a different topic about President Joe Biden's pardon of his son. I did not revert to the earlier discussion, not because I had been warned, but because I had said my piece. I was then told that I was excused from the studio chair. Shortly afterward, yes.
I just want to point out that many is the time in the literally 859 episodes of this podcast.
Yes.
We have pointed out that however bad the mainstream media ever gets, they never break bad on each other.
Right.
They never, other than Ronna McDaniel.
Yeah, right.
Being jumped into the middle of
because they hired her without consulting any of them at all.
This is your new colleague. Interview her on her opinions.
Yeah.
That brought Chuck Todd out of his cave to go, that was unfair. But other than that, even former employees, other than Keith Olbermann, never tell stories out of school.
No.
They never talk about what the producer says in their ear or what they're told they can and can't say or why there are never any fucking liberals on liberal TV before 8 o'clock at night. So this is a kind of a red letter day in the history of cable news.
This really is. And he is way talking out of school.
Yes, he is.
Just by mentioning what a producer said to him, I think is breaking a rule.
And warning him, don't you talk about Fox News.
Fox. Right? Okay.
Right.
I was then told I was excused from the studio chair. And I have been in remote studios for MSNBC, actually, in Alabama, where they had a guest on. It wasn't me, but there was someone I knew was a guest and invited me to come into the studio, to the TV studio, to watch them be on MSNBC. Yep. And you're the producer's there, the producer's talking to you in the earpiece. And when the host thanks you for being on, then the producer comes on and says, thanks a lot, you can go.
Yeah. I've been on local television here a number of times.
Yeah.
When I in a different role here. And it's all very clear what you're there to do, what you're going to be asked.
Yep.
And you'll have a conversation. The conversation will last 2.5 minutes.
Right.
They'll thank you and you're done. It's all very well planned out.
And if there is anything I hate that word controversial, but if there is anything that they're worried about you saying, there's a discussion.
Right.
Beforehand. Right? Okay. But so he was excused. He was told that the interview with him and the segment with him, that he was clear to leave. Okay. Shortly afterward, co-host Mika Brzezinski read an apology for my remarks.
Yeah.
And here's what she said. A little bit earlier in this block, there was a comment made about Fox News in our coverage about Pete Hegseth and the growing number of allegations about his behavior over the years and possible addiction to alcohol or issues with alcohol. The comment was a little too flippant for this moment that we're in. We just want to make that comment as well. We want to make that clear. We have differences in coverage with Fox News, and that's a good debate that we should have often. But right now, I just want to say there's a lot of good people who work at Fox News who care about Pete Hegseth, and we will want to leave it at that.
Yeah. So
now, this is when I disagree with Mika Brzezinski, and I disagree with David Frum, because David Frum's response is, she's right, of course, there are good people at Fox News. No,
Nope.
they're not.
No, they're not. By definition.
No, they're not. They work at a whorehouse.
They work at a propaganda factory that is destroying this country.
Yeah.
There are no good people at Fox News.
There are no good people at Fox.
Exceptions made for cafeteria workers and janitors.
Janitors, exactly.
Provisionally.
For the building, not for Fox, but for the building.
Right.
Yes.
If you are a janitor, if all you did in World War II for Germany was, grease the tracks, that's all you did, you're still a Nazi.
Yep.
You're still a Nazi because you're part of the machine. If you're part of the Fox machine at this point in 2024, you
Sitting
fucking
on
well
the crotch
know.
couch. Talking about illegals? No.
No, I mean anybody. If you supply the potted fucking plants for the studio,
right,
you know who you're working for.
You know
what they're doing.
Yeah, the producers, the cameramen, all of you. You all know what you're doing.
Yep. And I'm sorry that you can't, but there's always work at the post office, Blue Gal.
Right.
You can always.
You could be a janitor.
Yeah. You can always not live in Manhattan and get a job elsewhere doing something else.
You can move to Springfield, Illinois, and be a podcaster.
Absolutely. There's lots of work out there.
You'll take a 90% pay cut, but, housing is more affordable here than Manhattan. I can guarantee you that. All right. No good people at Fox. I just want to say that. Sorry, David Frum, you're wrong. Going on with David Frum. But if NBC's reporting based on interviews with 10 current or former Fox employees about Hegseth's alcohol abuse is accurate, many of those same good people have failed to report publicly that their former colleague appointed to lead the armed forces of the United States was notorious in their own building for his drinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's no good people at Fox, David.
Yeah.
That would be a startling and shameful shirking of responsibility on a matter of grave national importance.
By those good people.
What's the appropriate language to call it out? He's asking.
Oh, I know.
I know.
I know exactly what it is.
Fox is a whorehouse.
Fox is a whorehouse. If you work there, I don't care if you're playing the piano or serving drinks or working the rooms. You're working in a propaganda whorehouse, and you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. All right. I know I have to read this out loud. Please be aware that it galls me to read some of this. I'm proud of David Frum for writing it. He took a huge risk to his career, etc. But this part,
Here come the safety belts and the qualifiers.
Strap in. Mm-hmm. I am a big admirer of the Morning Joe show and the commitment of all involved to bring well-informed political discussion to a national audience. I recognize, too, that the prominence of the program has exposed the hosts and producers to extraordinary pressures and threats in the Trump era. Trump has spoken again and again, and then he goes on to talk about Trump's threats to Morning Joe, to MSNBC, etc. Okay.
Right.
All right. And ends that paragraph with, they, meaning the Morning Joe show as a whole, genuinely have a lot to worry about. As for my own comments, you can decide for yourself whether I overstepped the proper limits of television discussion. But I also note that if I did misstep, well, my face was on the screen. My name was on the chyron. And anyone who took offense knows who to blame. It is a very ominous thing if our leading forums for discussion of public affairs are already feeling the chill of intimidation and responding with efforts to appease. I write these words very aware that I'm probably saying goodbye forever to a television platform that I enjoy and from which I have benefited as both viewer and guest. I have been the recipient of personal kindnesses from the hosts that I have not forgotten. I do not write to scold anyone. I write because fear is infectious. Let it spread and it will paralyze us all. The only antidote is courage, and that's infectious too. Now, you and I have, I think, the same big argument against this article.
Yeah, if you're looking
Which
for
is-
courage from Joe Scarborough, you're looking in the wrong place.
That's one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
But the other one is David Frum is ignoring the history
Oh, yeah,
of MSNBC and Fox.
absolutely.
I think this has very little to do with Trump, what happened on Wednesday morning,
Yup.
and everything to do with the suits upstairs at MSNBC making agreements with their golf partners at Fox in the C-suite in Fox that we can have debates and we can argue who covered what and how they covered it, but we will not get personal. And we will always insist that there are good people in the other person's organization, except that Fox never does that about MSNBC.
No. Yeah, no, that's very clearly what's going on here.
And it has much more to do with, Keith Olbermann going after Bill O'Reilly back in the day, and the president of GE's mom. If you've listened to Keith Olbermann's podcast, you've heard this story, 30 times?
Yeah.
The president of GE's mom watched Bill O'Reilly and got upset. Bill O'Reilly say that GE makes parts for roadside bombs in Iraq.
They're killing Americans.
And how dare MSNBC, which is owned by GE, be a part of that anti-American, anti-our military, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Right.
And that's how Bill O'Reilly dealt with criticism of him by Keith Olbermann. And so Roger Ailes and the head of MSNBC made a deal and told Keith Olbermann he couldn't do that anymore. And so this apology that Mika read, you cannot say there's a bunch of drunks at Fox. You can't say that Pete Hegseth isn't the only one. I can imagine. We all know how many drugs flowed through the halls of the Third Reich.
Yes, we do.
In order to deal with who they were and what they were doing, they stayed high with whatever drug they had. It doesn't surprise me one bit that that's what's going on at Fox. The people start their day with a scotch.
Well, and that a producer at MSNBC, a Morning Joe producer, would know enough about what the policy is going to be from now on. If they would cut in during an ad break and say, "Don't you dare! Nope, you better not! Don't you do it!" And then when Frum said, "Well, whatever," nope, don't you do it! We're not doing that. We're not doing that. That is corporate policy speaking in his ear. That is not a spontaneous outbreak of worry. That is a corporate policy being transmitted to the person on camera right now that you have crossed a line. And that line is, we are now collaborating with Fox News. Because we're scared, because we are already 80% Republican anyway.
Right.
And we're already hungry for those MAGA viewers anyway.
Right.
And we're already alienating our whatever the fuck is left of our liberal viewers anyway, with Joe Scarborough going down to kiss Trump's ass. So
and the soups upstairs want their tax cuts, and they don't want Trump coming after them.
Exactly.
Because they want to sell advertising in the spring.
Yeah. And it's also betting on the fact that, as we have noted at least 852 times of the 859 episodes we've done, that they're just counting on the fact that a month or two or three from now, everybody will forget.
Yep.
That viewers are just dulled to the fact that there's no history.
Huge memory hole that is America.
There's no past. There's no history. We can take some clown out and whitewash him and reintroduce him to the audience, and most of them will go, "Oh, look, it's Matthew Dowd. He's a hero. Oh, look, Steve Schmidt. What a guy. I hear good things about him." And that's why we don't trust those people, and we haven't trusted them ever, because that's what they do. So,
well, and the other thing is the clubbiness of it all.
Yeah.
That is especially illustrated by the life and times of Mika Brzezinski.
Yeah, exactly.
Who, wants women to at least listen to Mark Halperin apologize, for gosh sakes.
Right. Give him a chance. He's very remorseful,
So that we can have him back on because he's part of the club.
He's a member of our family. Now, we don't have an antidote to that.
No.
But I believe you have some suggestions about how Democrats might arm themselves for the upcoming conflict.
Well, my colleague Carolee at Crooks and Liars has her own podcast called Momocrats, which we recommend you go listen to. And on Momocrats, she has talked this week about block. She wants Democrats to have a shadow government. She actually wants Kamala Harris to have a shadow government where they just block Republicans all day long.
Yeah.
And you and I have been talking this week about remembering the caucus room.
Exactly.
And that Newt Gingrich and Frank Luntz and a bunch of Republican congressmen, Kevin McCarthy, got together on Inauguration Day, the day Barack Obama was inaugurated, with that huge crowd. Remember that?
The biggest crowd in history.
Biggest crowd in any inauguration ever.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided, we're down now. What are we going to do? We're going to block everything.
Yep.
And we're going to win the midterms by blocking everything he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was touch and go as to whether the Affordable Care Act would get passed. It took Al Franken winning that seat in Minnesota late to get that through. And so you and I have been talking about what would our caucus room strategy be?
Yeah. Democrats. If we've got
a couple ideas.
Yeah.
One that I think would really throw a monkey wrench into, the President-elect syphilis's engine, is if we would like to recommend that Democrats in Congress announce an intense suspicion of presidential social media posts.
Yeah.
Because anyone can come in and hack that,
Well, as you know, Kash Patel has just been hacked.
And Kash Patel has been hacked.
So anybody can get hacked.
So for the safety of the country and the transparency of our relationship with the administration, can you tell I wanted to be a presidential speechwriter when I was in high school, Driftglass?
That's one of the many reasons I married you, Blue Gal.
But for the sake of transparency in our relationship with the administration.
Well, as you know, when Blue Gal wrote our vows, she talked about for the good of the country and the economy and a bright road into the future and 21st century.
I don't remember any of that. I just remember when the judge, who was John Schmidt, we always called him John Jacob Jingleheimer, rest in peace. I'm kissing two fingers and pointing to the sky. But when he said, do you take this woman? You looked up at the ceiling and shouted, yes!
Yes. And he offered us the half-an-hour ceremony, the 5-minute ceremony.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do the 45-minute ceremony, the hour-and-a-half ceremony, or the 10-minute ceremony. And we picked the 10-minute.
Yeah.
And then he told us the county was broke.
Yeah. Sorry.
So you're going to have to pay $24 for your wedding license or whatever. Yeah,
and whatever it was. We gave him a $5 tip. We did. Like you do.
He bought Oreos with that. We did. But yeah, so Democrats in Congress announced that they are not going to accept social media posts as declarations of presidential intent.
Right.
For the sake of security and transparency with their relationship with the White House.
We're just going to ignore them as if they aren't there.
And if if the president wants something, he can meet with us. He can call us to the White House to meet with us. Or he can say it to the press on camera.
Yep.
But Truth Social posts will not be taken as declarations of presidential intent.
Yeah. Well, and
then you had another idea that was a little more strident. I'll let you talk about that.
Well, it's and I'm borrowing this from at least 4 other sources, I'm sure, because a lot of people have the same idea, and that is some Democrats have to start behaving contrary to their instincts. Because Republican instinct is to hold hostages, take hostages, threaten to destroy the country, threaten to take away people's health care. That's all they understand. The only levers they understand are threatening to kill people or hurt them or make them sick or make them poor to force Democrats to do things they don't want to do. And Democrats, being basically generally decent people who don't want to see people killed or hurt.
Being pro-governance.
Yeah.
Right?
We're pro-helping people.
Yeah.
And when your whole agenda is hurting people, it puts us at kind of a strategic disadvantage. So part of what we need to do, at least for the short term, is start taking hostages. We won't fund the government. They're going to be down to a 1 or 2 vote margin in the House. They're going to have at least some people who are marginally normal Republicans. I mean, not decent people, but they are not fucking crazy. They're not all Marjorie Taylor Greenes.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that Johnson's going to have, which is you're going to have Marjorie Taylor Greenes on one side and people who would really don't want to be tagged as her on the other.
Right.
In swing districts.
Mm-hmm.
And because we bailed their asses out during all of the last time.
Yep.
All of the votes were like Kevin McCarthy could get 3 votes and we'd provide the 212 rest.
Right.
Now we were the ones who were bailing them out when they refused to fund the government.
Right.
So we start issuing demands like we're not going to help you out at all. Fuck you. Do it all yourself unless you, number one, you're going to work with us to make DC a state. Period. By the end of this fiscal year, DC will be a state. Which is something that they're never going to do.
They're never going to do that. We know they're never going to do that.
Number 2, we're going to ban assault weapons, coast to coast. Assault weapons are dangerous. We all agree they're all dangerous. They should be banned and confiscated. Number 3, we're going to take ACA, Department of Education, off the table by fully funding them for 10 years. And then you go to the so-called negotiating table.
Yep.
Those are our demands. If you want your fucking tax cuts and any support for us, well, and they can sit there and talk about, well, I guess you don't want to fund people who are poor and sick and sick. No, we do. But you're all crazy.
We do, but you're in the majority.
You're in the majority.
Yes.
You're holding all these people hostage. Mm-hmm. We're going to go out and hold a press conference now about how you're trying to kill people who are poor and brown because you won't fund the programs that keep them alive.
And we are good at counting votes too. We're going to show the count. And then the other thing I think that happens in all of this is when you're giving the press conference, ignore the media. And fuck Chuck Todd, who we all know is going to blame Washington. Meet the Press is going to blame Washington. Morning Joe is going to blame Washington. Just ignore that. Ignore that noise. We don't care. And we're not going to care because Mike Johnson is in charge of the House. And this is his problem. And he will not negotiate with us in good faith about our reasonable demands to fund necessary departments for special needs kids and affordable health care for Americans. He will not guarantee those things, those non-negotiables. So we're moving on. And he will get no votes from us until he does.
And you wanted a MAGA government? You've got it. You've got it.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Or meet our demands.
Yep.
Or meet because this is how you've been playing ball for decades.
Right.
And it's time that we learned a lesson from the people who've been beating us at these negotiations for a long time. And I realize, again, it's going to require Democrats to behave in a way that's completely unnatural for us to behave.
Right. It's counter to our instincts, for sure. Yeah.
But if 2024 proved anything, it's that Republican MAGA voter racism and depravity is a choice. Mm-hmm. Not an accident. They didn't stumble into this election. They had to work really hard this year to avoid the knowledge of what was going on in the world. I hear way too much talk about low information voters, didn't know what was going on, what's going on in the world, we don't know. You had to work your ass off over the last 6 years, 7 years to avoid knowing what a fucking monster Trump is and how awful Republicans are.
Right.
You had to go out of your way. It was so much easier. Just
the fact that he was found liable for sexual assault. You had to plug your ears not to know that. Yeah. And in 2024, it took so much more effort to remain willfully ignorant enough to rationalize voting for that rapist fascist than it would have taken to simply notice those very big things that were going on in the world. Yeah. Absolutely. It was willful ignorance. And
so this can't be chalked up to high egg prices or inflation's really bad or whatever. This is a conscious choice that 49% of this country made. And it's time we started stepping out of their way, letting them go off the cliff. And there's going to be a lot of damage, but there's going to be a lot of damage anyway. No, that's it. Mm-hmm. They won all three. They have the trifecta, and they don't know how to govern. So, fuck them. Brief aside, we want to thank Bob Cesca for having us on his Wednesday show. We were on Wednesday afternoon. You can go listen to that. Bob Cesca has a link at Blue Sky to the show.
It was a lovely conversation, and we are in very, very intense negotiations with Bob
Yeah.
to be on again more regularly because we all had a good time.
As long as he promises DC statehood and banish.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Bob Cesca would be happy to promise DC statehood.
Sure. But will he deliver? And finally, since Keith Olbermann decided to use the phrase dumpster fire no less than 3 times in one podcast today.
Seriously, did he turn into Rumpelstiltskin at that point? I think he did.
Well, I think he summoned Beetlejuice.
Without
attribution.
Without attribution. Yeah.
Today, we will be introducing a new segment we like to call Things I Promise Not to Tell. It'll be all about all the awful Republican monsters and legacy media toadies with whom I once had sexual congress.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, no, it won't be that.
It won't be
I would
that.
not inflict that on you. But Keith, come on, man. Come on. We're on the same team.
Yeah. And dumpster fire, it has been publicly acknowledged that you coined the term dumpster fire.
Yes.
So, enough.
Come on, Keith. I mean,
Come on, Keith.
It's enough that when Charlie Sykes is on television on MSNBC, he has a dumpster fire ornament.
Ornament on his mantle. Mm-hmm. That's just trolling you. That's what
just
that
fuck
is.
You, Driftglass.
That's what it is. I'm on MSNBC and you're not.
Yeah, but I have my soul and you don't. So I win.
Amen. Look, we have had tremendous feedback from you guys about Driftglass reading Bradbury and reading Royko.
Yes.
And so today we're going to do Thursdays with Royko again.
Yes, indeed. And pardon me if my voice is a little rough. I'm still recovering from a chest cold.
The crud. And believe me, it's coming out. And you don't want to be around for that. So if I start and stop here or sound a little different than I do normally, it's because I'm playing hurt, as Keith Olbermann might say. Yes, right, right.
This is from October 25th, 1967. It is not political. It just made me smile. The column is entitled "Job Fighters Lose Last Haven." Social workers are being sent into Chicago pool halls for the malicious purpose of persuading pool players to take regular jobs. This is part of the federal war on poverty, and it shows how dirty a war, even a poverty war, can be. As a taxpayer, I object to my money being used for such an inhumane purpose. Napalm bombs on villages are one thing. How can we make Vietnam free if we don't first burn it? But infiltrating pool halls with social workers is an atrocity. Pool halls have always been off limits to certain types of undesirables, such as women, children, and preachers, and that is as it should be. The pool hall provides a sanctuary for men who want to escape creeping togetherness, one of the few great dangers left in our way of life. Few such sanctuaries remain. Bowling alleys used to be almost as good as pool halls. Some of the most stimulating conversations ever heard occurred when a wine-loving pin setter and a beer-drinking bowler argued about whether the bowler intentionally threw a ball while the pin setter's head was in the way. But now the bowling alley has become a family center. Instead of sending their children outside to play in the fresh air pollution, parents send them to kiddie bowling leagues before they're even old enough to falsify their ID. Taverns long ago adopted the bad practice of admitting women, which led to the wall signs that prohibited swearing and other simple pleasures. The pool hall alone has tried to retain its dignity and traditions. It's been difficult because of the emergence of pseudo-pool hall, places that actually encourage women and families to enter and play. These are not really pool halls. They're simply public basement recreation rooms. So the pool hall has slowly dwindled in number. Only a few good ones remain in Chicago, simple, quiet places where men can go, and gather to swear, lie, shoot pool, or watch someone else shoot pool, hustle or be hustled, read a scratch sheet, bet, doze, all without intrusion. There is nothing like a pool hall. And you know what, Driftglass, I can attest to the fact there's nothing like a pool hall, a divey pool hall. Except maybe a steam bath. And there's not much to bet on in a steam bath. The few remaining pool halls won't survive if social workers start coming around and bothering the players about going to work. I don't even trust the motives of the social workers. Do they actually believe the pool players do not know that there are jobs available outside the pool hall? Of course they know it. It was the thought of working regularly that sent so many of them into the pool halls in the first place. As the great Rudolph Wanderwan, better known as Minnesota Fats, has often said on the subject of work, I ain't never lifted anything heavier than a fork, and I never will. Or, as the lesser-known Slats Grobnik, also known as Armitage Avenue Stupid, has often said, if work is so good, how come we got rid of the 12-hour day? Slats is wise in the ways of work. Fats would not have become a great pool player, thereby avoiding regular work, if Miss Sally Do-Gooder was forever popping out of the corner pocket and nagging him about filling in a welfare form or taking a job in the bakery. His nerves would have been ruined, and America would have lost a great athlete and an inspiration to the youth. I suspect that social workers don't really care if pool players work. They're offended by the thought of happy, shiftless men surviving without their help. They want to inject themselves with ambition. They want to inject them with ambition, upward mobility, stability, and other dread social diseases. An American institution is in danger, and the social worker should be stopped. We might not save the lake, but we can save the pool player. Remember, there are 750 million people holding jobs in the United States, but there is only one Minnesota Fats, and that is the end of the story.
Ha! There's lots of workers, but there's only one Minnesota Fats. That is true.
That is true. That is absolutely true. And if you're ever around Springfield, Illinois, I have a wide collection of movies about pool players.
Oh, for
ranging from
sake.
The Hustler to The Color of Money to Pool Hall Junkies.
I was thinking when you said that if you're ever around Springfield and you want to lose some money, I'll play pool with you.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while. I'm a little bit out of practice. You know, I'm married now and I have a family and I'm a little more respectable. But there was a time when you would have found me up on Devon Avenue in my younger days in a sleazy little Greek restaurant with a couple of pay pool tables under the L tracks, taking college kids' money away from them. Who were going to Loyola and came down to drink ouzo, and I'd say, yeah, but we shoot a little pool. And at 1 or 2 in the morning, they would walk away with their pockets a little lighter. And that's not how I made a living. No. But on the weekends, it was sure fun to show them how geometry worked when practically applied on a green felt table.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Driftglass, we're going to do a news roundup. The cornfield resistance persists.
Excellent. From
The Guardian. Pete Hegseth vows to stay sober if confirmed as defense secretary. You know, Driftglass, if I'm secretary of defense secretary,
right,
I won't take a drink at work. I promise.
I won't.
Ask my mom.
Ask my mom. My mom knows stuff. And you know what? If I'm secretary, I won't be chasing secretaries. I'll be the secretary. Okay.
I'll be a secretary. They can chase me.
Mm-hmm. Delicious bourbon. Brownest of the brown liquors. So tempting. What's that? You want me to drink you?
On the other hand, Donald Trump is considering replacing his choice for defense secretary with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Pete Hegseth, who is facing allegations of sexual misconduct, financial mismanagement, and alcohol abuse, insisted there's no reason to back down, and that Trump told him, I got your back. It's a fight. We're coming for you. Yeah, you can never trust him because he always stands by his friends. You know that. I mean, just ask Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, at least he wasn't going to settle the Trump College or whatever, the Trump University case either until he did. Dude.
Oh, well, it's going to be fun. How many times will you bounce when they toss you out the window before you come to rest?
Yeah.
I can't see you going back to Fox.
Nope.
At least 6 Senate Republicans have said they're uncomfortable voting to confirm the former Fox News host. Hegseth's mother, who wrote in an email that her son, quote, belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, unquote, also told Fox News in my opinion, one of the most humiliating moments in modern television, that Pete's a new person. Okay, and this manly man, this man among men, this man who thinks women shouldn't be in combat, who women should be subordinate, who women should kneel when he enters the room, had to call his mommy to come in and fight his battles for him.
Yep.
He's like the incel's incel, honey.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Trump selection to lead the Drug Enforcement Administration withdrew his name from consideration 3 days after he was nominated. Republicans had criticized him in the past for enforcing COVID lockdowns. So this was only going to get worse. So before anybody knew his name, he left.
Trump has selected Peter Navarro to serve as his senior counselor for trade and manufacturing. Navarro, who served as director of the White House National Trade Council in Trump's first administration, spent 4 months in federal prison earlier this year for refusing to cooperate with the congressional investigation into the J6 attacks on the Capitol. I'm pleased to announce that Pete Navarro, Trump said, a man who was treated horribly by the deep state or whatever else you would like to call it, will serve as my senior counselor for trade and manufacturing, unquote.
Trump has picked a billionaire with extensive financial ties to Elon Musk's SpaceX to be the next administrator of NASA.
The man who is very likely the stupidest man in Congress.
That's a tough call, but
it's a tough call. It's really tough. But I gotta
he's
say,
in the top 5.
Tommy Tuberville is at the end of the bell curve. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 or 3, but he's right there.
Yeah.
And he explained this week that it's not the job of Senate Republicans to vet Trump's nominees. Quote, who are we to say that we're better veteran picker of people than Donald Trump? That's not our job. The Constitution. That's not our job to do that. It literally is your job. It is literally in the owner's manual of the United States government.
Advise and consent. Those words are in there.
No, it says bend over and spread them. That's what it says. Yeah. I can't blame Tommy Tuberville for being the dead rat stupid. It's the voters who voted for him. It's their fault.
Because he's a football coach. So that's why.
He's a moron. He's also a dangerous moron. But, so are the people who voted for him.
This is from Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. Quote, listen to this one. Quote, corporate America launches unorthodox campaign to gain Trump's attention. Mm-hmm. Companies look at scrubbing left-leaning policies from their websites and scoping out appearances on conservative podcasts, unquote. And this is why the producer at Morning Joe got in the earbud of David Frum.
Absolutely.
Because those people, the ones that are scrubbing stuff like equal opportunity from their websites, are going to be the ones buying ads from MSNBC in the spring.
Yeah. And
they don't want to be reminded that they caved to Trump.
I'm guessing that the Wall Street Journal writer had to look for half an hour for the word unorthodox. Plug in there to other than bend the knee, grovel.
Well, it could have been controversial.
Controversial is great, but unorthodox is the new controversial. Dateline Pittsburgh steelworkers who supported Trump aren't happy that he's opposing the U.S. Steel Nippon deal. I'm very frustrated with the news that came out last night. That was like a gut punch, says a United Steelworkers vice president. Fucked around, found out.
Yep. From Raw Story, bodies are piling up. Reporter finds GOP-led states are hiding abortion ban death tolls.
Just like COVID.
Exactly. Quote, some Republican-led states that passed near-total abortion bans have mysteriously stopped collecting... It's not mysterious.
No,
Raw
not
Story.
at all. Mm-hmm.
Have mysteriously stopped collecting statistics on maternal mortality over the last couple of years. And some observers suspect it's not a coincidence, wrote Susan Rinkunas for MSNBC. Did she write mysteriously and suspect?
I don't know. But we do have some good... Well, this is good news in the sense that people who try to make things worse are not going to be able to make it worse. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield halted its anesthesia payment policy after a backlash. The health insurer had planned to cap the length of time anesthesia can be covered during medical procedures in 3 states, which prompted understandable outrage.
From surgeons, from doctors, from patients, from the public.
Yeah.
And from legislators in those 3 states.
Yup.
Who are like, you want to do what now? But, some brilliant bean counter thought, you know what? We'll only pay for 3 hours of anesthesia. That'll work.
And then we'll start making some money.
And then the $30,000 that is due for the rest of the surgery, the patient can eat that up.
That's
and
pure
go
profit.
into medical bankruptcy, and then our stock price goes up, and everybody wins. Don't get me started. All right. Our investigation must continue, says Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. She says that even after Hunter Biden's pardoned, House Republicans plan to keep investigating him.
That's right.
Well, I hope he shows up at the hearing like he did last January with his lawyers ready to testify.
Yeah.
And all hell breaks loose because that's the last thing they want.
He's their philosopher's stone.
Yeah.
He's going to turn all that lead into gold. It's
But not if he
Obamacare.
shows up at the hearing and calls them out for their bullshit.
Well, I hope he does. But you were talking, as we were talking about the podcast, this has been an effort to try to drive him to suicide.
That's what it's been.
And
yeah. Sorry for that triggering word, folks.
Yeah.
But that's what this is about, getting him to give up on sobriety, destroy his life.
Yeah.
And make him fail.
Right.
In the worst way.
If this were
so they can hurt Joe Biden.
If this were an ordinary criminal prosecution based on the charges that he was charged with, he wouldn't have been charged with half of them. Yeah. And then he would have done some community service and paid a fine. Yeah. Or been in like a minimum security facility with a rehab program, which he was leading in the last place he was at for a couple of months.
Yeah.
This is an attempt to fucking crucify the person closest to Joe Biden, to hurt Joe Biden by using the levers of power that 49.9% of this country gave Republicans.
Right.
And Joe Biden took that away from them.
Yep.
And that's making them very mad.
They can't stand it. They can't stand it.
Our never Trump allies just can't get it through their fucking heads why that was necessary, why that's a good thing. I don't understand these people, other than they're terrified of Donald Trump retaliating against them or they want to pardon themselves. I just don't get how these people have columns in major newspapers, have their podcasts, have their media corporation, and they're fucking harping on the fact that Joe Biden
protected his son.
And it's not as if he didn't want him to suffer any consequence. He didn't want to be crucified by barbarians who would do it for fun.
Right.
Which is exactly what they were planning on doing. And there's no answer. I don't hear an answer from them for that, other than, this just makes it easier for Donald Trump to, break the law with impunity. It takes a weapon off the table. No, it doesn't. He's going to do all the horrible shit anyway.
Absolutely.
And you fucking well know it. So I don't, other than the fact that part of their brain really can't process the idea of history.
Yeah.
That Republicans have been doing horrible shit like this to wreck Democrats for a long time, and they
were a part of that.
Absolutely.
So it's their own internal guilt speaking there.
This is how Republicans do. Like, how can we best drive Vince Foster to kill himself. And then blame and then hang that around Hillary Clinton's neck for the next 10 years. They consider that a victory. They consider that a good thing. And we consider that just pure fucking evil. And if we can get somebody out of the line of fire of pure evil who's going to be used to hurt Joe Biden as badly as he can possibly be hurt, fine. That's a good thing. And anyone who says otherwise can come on this podcast and tell me why I'm wrong.
All right. Anyway. I'm going to put a trigger warning in the discussion of this podcast in the description. Okay.
I agree.
A reminder, Democrats won the final uncalled U.S. House race in California, leaving Republicans with a one-seat margin. Here's the math. Republicans will officially have 220 seats to Democrats' 215 when the 119th Congress is sworn in on January 3rd. However, Trump selected Elise Stefanik as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and Mike Waltz as national security advisor, plus Matt Gaetz already resigned and will not return for the 119th Congress. That means Speaker Mike Johnson will only have a 2017 to 2015 advantage. If a vote ends in a tie, the legislation doesn't pass.
Yeah. Yep. Now, here's a pop quiz for all you kids out there. We know the answer. We have the teacher's guide up here, so we know the answer to the quizzes. But this week, who was it that bitterly complained about partisan manipulation of the courts? I'll put in the Jeopardy clock here.
Do, 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 do.
This is from The Hill. Quote, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, vented his displeasure Monday after two Democratic-appointed federal judges reversed their decisions to retire in what appears to be efforts to stop President-elect Trump from nominating their successors. There's no appears to be about it. That is exactly what they're doing. McConnell called the unusual decision to forego retirement following Trump's sweeping victory. It wasn't sweeping in any sense of the word. Last month, a, quote, partisan, unquote, gambit that would undermine the integrity of the federal courts.
Yeah,
unquote.
fuck him.
Yeah, fuck him.
He's all of a sudden concerned about the integrity of the federal court.
He's not. He just knows that it'll make liberals unhappy to see the devil quoting scripture. That's all.
Yeah. This from the indispensable Judd Legum at Popular Info. Chinese crypto king Justin Sun has been charged with fraud by the SEC, and that's the Security and Exchanges Commission, and has just made a crypto investment that will net Donald Trump and his sons $18 million.
What a coincidence.
Who wants to bet that Justin Sun's SEC charges will disappear like a miracle, just like COVID in the spring under Trump?
That's right. It'll just disappear. Well, it'll just disappear like a miracle. It'll be like a miracle.
You know, the Security and Exchange Commission charges will just disappear.
Vanish. No one knows what happened to them. No one can find the
$18
body.
million crypto bribe is what happened.
Yeah.
It's the corruption.
Right out in the open. Because the cops have been voted out of office.
Right.
And the criminals have taken over.
Oh, can I just mention that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be the lead Democrat on the House Oversight Committee in January?
Yes. You know.
Protect her, but also let's fucking go.
Yeah.
All right.
One more pop quiz for the record. Who said this and when did they say it? Quote, you can be the most worthless Republican in America, but if you kiss the ring, he'll say you're wonderful, unquote.
Is it the most worthless Republican in America who said that?
Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. It is Ron DeSantis, Ron Go-Go Boots DeSantis, less than a year ago, Blue Gal, in January of 2024, this last year. Yep.
Wow.
Yep, and he's going to go down to Mar-a-Lago and kiss that bloated orange ass. Yes, he will.
Absolutely. Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is named Baby Cat.
Aw.
And in this picture, Baby Cat, now we don't want to say this too loudly, but she just had a little surgery to prevent her from having kittens.
Oh.
And so her human put her in a little jumper in the hopes that they wouldn't need the cone of shame. And it worked. Just putting a little T-shirt over her belly.
Wow.
She didn't lick it. So that all worked. That was really great. And now Baby Cat's all healed up. She's a couple years older. This is a 3-year-old picture, but she's all healed up. And of course, Baby Cat eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cat will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured.
Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh my Lord, it's freshly poured.
And you can visit Baby Cat, so cute, at our Facebook page and website. ProLeftPod.com is our website, and you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. We got a postcard this week asking us why we no longer say fire to joy, and it's a good point.
Yeah.
We
Fire
have to
DeJoy.
look that up at some point and figure out how much longer DeJoy is going to be in office.
Yeah.
But we do love hearing from you, and be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions! Letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
And we've gotten some really good letters this week. And I think we should do a letter show soon because we've got a lot of people writing us, telling us stuff, telling us stories. I think that's a really good feature. But in the interim, do not forget our gourmet coffee guidelines or gourmet mustard guidelines, if that makes you happy. If you can afford to buy Grey Poupon for yourself, buy some for us, or an espresso-based beverage for yourself. Not us. This is not charity. This is our job. If you can spare $5 a month, please spare $5 a month at patreon.com/proleftpod. Another thing you can do that's extraordinarily helpful and is really bringing people to our door is sharing our show on social media. If you love this podcast, Get someone else to listen to it if you can. Don't be rude about it, but suggest that maybe this is something you'd like to hear. Because, a couple of people in the Midwest who have a different perspective than everyone else is somebody's cup of tea that out there that could use a little cheering up during these dark days. And thank you for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties are kind of pissed because instead of a real Christmas tree this year, the one they could, chew on and throw up all over the carpet, I built them a pine plank Christmas tree.
And we are going to put a picture of that Christmas tree that Driftglass built out of pine planks.
Yes.
Up at our Patreon page, patreon.com/proleftpod.
Mm-hmm.
We will make it public so everybody going to that website can look at it.
We will be blurring out all identifying marks and features.
We're just going to show the plank pine tree. It's really cute.
Yeah. It was fun to make.
Driftglass glued it and put it together, and you've become quite a woodworker.
No, you see it up close. It's full of mistakes, but I'm happy with it.
It's like knitting. It's like early knitting then.
Yeah,
right?
I'm
That'll
getting
block
there.
right out. It's
well,
fine.
I started, as you know, because our deck was collapsing, was rotting out. It long before we were in this house, they built it, and I replaced one plank and then two, and I realized the whole thing has to go. So I spent last summer pulling up planks and cutting boards and spacing them and gluing them and planing them and so forth. And I can do this. I had to buy all the tools to do it. Suddenly I have all these tools and this is kind of fun. I can do this.
And then you built stairs.
I built stairs.
To go down to the garage, and you built stairs to go out to the backyard. And
I did. And then I built a bench. And that was a lot of fun to build. And I did the railing. I've done, as I mentioned, a desk for myself, a crappy, cheap-ass work surface where I can put my computer, and a little Christmas tree. So, it's good to make things with your hands and see them after you're done. It's not like politics at all.
No, I think it's been really good for your mental health to be able to get out to the garage and work with some wooden materials and actually make something.
Well,
I think that's true.
You can see the result of your labors, and the mistakes are yours. The triumphs are yours. And it feels good to do something, start with an idea, execute it, end up with a thing that you can look at and admire and go, yeah, I'd do that better next time. And see.
But we haven't had a tree in this house because of the cats.
Exactly. No, we haven't.
For years and years and years. We just haven't had it. We've had stockings and other things, but we haven't done a tree. And
now we do.
Now we do. Now we have a tree. We have an actual tree with lights on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very exciting. Well, everybody, I hope you are having I hope you all have a peaceful and lovely holiday season.
Yes.
Stick with us. And we'll see you next time.
We'll be back next week. So, this is not our end of the year podcast.
No,
so
it's not.
This is just the end of my ability to talk without coughing podcast.
Honestly. Hey, guys, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's think about living.
Think about living.
Let's think about loving.
Think about loving.
Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey.
Lovey-dovey-dovey.
Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.